It's a fear that many people who live alone share, falling, or choking, or hitting your head, and not being able to access medical attention. Even if you're completely able-bodied and in good health, there is always a chance of some accident happening, made worse by the fact that no one else is around to help. However, even people who do cohabitate sometimes run into situations where they need urgent help and have trouble finding it. This is exactly what happened to one man in Dubai, but fortunately for him, in his moment of need, he ultimately ended up attracting the attention of the most unlikely hero. Saeed Al Bayati is a 33-year-old business development manager who lives in Dubai. He shares his 3-story house with several roommates, who also happen to be his good friends. However, humans are not the only living things occupying the house. The group also adopted a dog, a Japanese Spitz named Kaizer, when he was only a puppy. Technically, the dog belongs to Priya Shah, one of Bayati's roommates, but of course, everyone in the house completely adores Kaizer, not only for his precious looks but equally for his lovable personality. Kaizer is no run-of-the-mill dog. He has some very special qualities indeed. Not only is he super friendly, but he also is very loyal, and extremely protective over the people that he loves. Kaizer is so devoted to his owners that when their parents come to visit he will sometimes even bark at them, if he feels that they are scolding their adult children. However, one fateful day, when his owners needed him most, Kaizer would do something that was shocking even to those who had known him since he was only a small puppy. Saeed was hanging out in his bedroom on the top floor of the house when he decided to go downstairs. Unfortunately, it would be a lot longer than he'd thought until he finally made it down. The 33-year-old twisted his ankle and tripped, leaving him incapacitated and completely unable to crawl, let alone walk. This was a particularly dangerous predicament for him to be in, for one reason in particular. This is because Saeed was an asthmatic. If he were to have an attack, which was not an entirely uncommon occurrence, there would be no one there to help him. The situation could be fatal. Saeed began to sweat profusely, entering a state of sheer panic. His hands trembled, and he began to hyperventilate. Then he took the only step he could think of to try and fix his awful predicament. He called out to his housemates. Although it was past 10 at night, he knew they were home. Surely someone would hear his cries and be able to rescue him. Unfortunately, one of his roommates was sleeping soundly on the second floor of the house, while the other was awake watching TV 2 flights below Saeed. Neither could hear his screams. Saeed began shouting even louder, desperate to find some source of help. He was in an extreme amount of pain and feared an asthma attack could be just around the corner. Then, he had an idea. "Kaizer," he shouted. Suddenly, he heard the patter of tiny footsteps. He could hardly believe it. Kaizer had heard his frenzied pleas and had come to save him. Unfortunately, there was a serious obstacle. The door was closed. I could hear him sniffing under the door. I am sure he picked up that I was in distress and immediately started barking, Bayati remarked when recalling the highly traumatic incident. Still, although Kaizer was ready to do whatever he could to help, Bayati was not yet out of harm's way. Then Kaizer made a move that would save his owner's life and earn himself the reputation of a true hero. Kaizer tried to come to each of us, Priya recalls. He kept on barking for over 15 minutes and made sure one of us checked. They followed him upstairs. It was Saeed's other roommate, Reese, who finally realized that Kaizer's constant barking had actually been an effort to send the residents a crucial message. Reese jumped into action. Following Kaizer's lead, Reese bounded up the steps to check on his friend. Sure enough, he found Saeed in a state of distress, writhing on the floor in pain. He helped him up, and they went to receive medical attention. The story didn't end here, though. Priya posted about Kaizer's intelligence and bravery on the Facebook group, Dogs in Dubai, and he quickly became a hit on the internet. Many people had some exceedingly kind things to say about the pup. "Animals' instincts are truly amazing and in this case life-saving," one Facebook commentator gushed. "A very heartwarming story to read. Wishing your friend a speedy recovery." A groomer in Dubai even offered Kaizer a free gift for his services, a grooming session completely on the house. "I took them up on the offer and Kaizer was treated like the hero he is," Priya said. Like Saeed Al Bayati, Amelia Milling can thank a dog for saving her life. The deaf Tennessee native attended the Rochester Institute of Technology in upstate New York, and constantly pushed herself to do the extreme, sometimes, the very extreme. In the summer of 2017, for instance, Amelia spent time hiking through and camping in the gorgeous national parks offered out west, nothing too serious, however. In 2018, though, she planned to outdo herself. On June 19, 2018, Amelia packed her bags, including an emergency tracker device her mother insisted she bring, and headed to Chugach State Park, right, an expanse of Rocky Mountain and serene rivers about 30 miles east of Anchorage, Alaska. There, she hiked on her own along winding mountain paths, which, she noted, taxed her far more than she'd expected. As a southerner, she hadn't considered there'd still be snow in June. So she changed her plans. On the second day of her trip, she descended into the Eagle River Valley. Just 4 miles into the hike, her walking stick snapped in two. She slid for 300 feet, smashed into a boulder, then fell another 400 feet down a snowy, gradual slope. The 21-year-old ended up bleeding and broken, looking up at the mountains, a very dramatic moment. Facing death, the only thing she could think of was that her dream vacation was over. Then she saw something terrifying. A wolf appeared out of nowhere and watched her in her state of weakness. Hardly able to stand, and with no one around, she stood no chance against a wolf. But then, she noticed something around the animal's neck that gave her relief. What she thought was a wolf wore a bone tag that read, "Crow Pass Guide," along with an address. It was then she knew this was no wolf, but a white husky named Nanook. He'd come to rescue her. "Nanook gave me the motivation to get up and walk," Amelia said. So she did just that. With the white husky at her side, she walked back to the trail. When night fell, she set up a tent and invited Nanook inside. The dog declined. But the dog didn't go anywhere. "I realized he really was sticking with me when he greeted me in the morning when I unzipped my tent," Amelia said. "He had stayed the entire night next to me. He offered more help, too." Along the trail, Amelia and Nanook encountered the Eagle River crossing, a roiling, swirling, and freezing point of the river. Amelia tried twice to cross it. On the second time, she slipped, and the water pulled her under. After 15 minutes caught in the swell, Amelia bolted back toward the shore. Nanook had grabbed her backpack and pulled her to safety. Afraid of hypothermia, Amelia curled up into her sleeping bag. There, Nanook kept licking her face. In fact, he licked her face until she remembered the emergency tracker her mother made her take on the hike. When prompted by Nanook, she activated it, sending alerts to Alaska State Troopers. Several hours later, trained rescue workers descended on her location in a helicopter before scooping the miserable Amelia and her canine companion up. Rescuers brought Amelia to an Anchorage hospital. When Amelia recounted her story, the troopers were floored. Nookie was nothing short of a modern-day Lassie hero, one rescuer, Alaska State Trooper Lieutenant Eric Olson, said. Inspired by the pooch, Lieutenant Olson personally brought the dog home. There, the trooper met Scott Swift, Nanook's owner, left. When he heard what his dog had been up to the past 24 hours. "I was definitely pretty floored," he said. "It sends chills up my spine when I think about it. I certainly didn't train him to do anything like this." Scott continued, "It's a pretty powerful feeling that this dog had this instinctual ability to want to go help people." The state of Alaska recognized that, too, and gave Nanook a special honor for his work. For his heroics, Nanook was made an honorary Alaska State Trooper. The free spirit dog would no doubt look good in the uniform. Amelia couldn't have been happier for her savior. Amelia recovered in Anchorage and actually continued the dream vacation she once thought would end violently. She did, however, take plenty of time away from hiking to spoil Nanook with lots and lots of treats. Amelia was extremely lucky to have Nanook come to her rescue. In a wild region like the Alaskan wilderness, having a loyal companion to get you through can be a critical factor for survival. And that is definitely the case when it comes to the brutalist of climates, Siberia. 4-year-old Karina Chikatova lived in a remote Siberian village in the Far East region called the Sakha Republic. There, she shared a small home with her father, mother, grandmother, and her dog, Nida. Like most kids her age, Karina was energized by a youthful curiosity, that urge to explore and know and understand. Which was why, in July 2014, she followed her father, Rodion, on an expedition into a part of the Siberian wilderness also known as the taiga. Now this decision was problematic for a few different reasons. The first reason being that the taiga is very much an animal kingdom, dominated by bears, tigers, and wolves with really sharp teeth and an appetite for people. The second problem with Karina's decision was that she had not told her grandmother, the person charged with watching her at the time, that she would be following her dad into the bear-infested wilderness. In fact, she hadn't even told her dad that she would be following him. So literally no one on the planet knew that this 4-year-old girl was diving headstrong into the most dangerous territory on the planet. No person, at least. Karina did have a companion at her side, Nida, the family dog. That, evidently, was all the comfort the little girl needed, but it was little comfort to her mother, Talina, when she realized her little girl and the dog were both missing. At first, Talina figured her youngster and the dog followed Rodion to his native village, but Siberia wasn't exactly flooded with quality LTE, so she couldn't pull out a cell phone and check. Instead, she waited to hear from her husband. In the meantime, Karina followed her father until she somehow managed to lose his trail. Her dad disappeared from view, leaving her very much stranded in Siberia with Nida. And the bears. And the wolves. It took 4 days of waiting for Mother Talina to learn that, no, her daughter was not with her husband in his home village. No stranger to Siberia, she understood this to be a very bad thing, so she alerted authorities. They deployed a 100-person rescue team to head out into Siberian wilds to find her. The team carried rifles to fend off bears. Yeah, there were that many bears in the woods. Helicopters sliced the sky and rescue workers on foot combed through the trees and tall grass, but their search proved fruitless. Karina was nowhere to be seen. But then, 9 days after she went missing, authorities found a clue. More specifically, a clue walked right up to the authorities and introduced herself. Nida returned to her home, but Karina was not with her. What should have been a hopeful moment only seemed to confirm Talina's worst thoughts. If she was to hug her puppy, Talina said, we thought, this would have given her a chance to survive. So when her dog came back we thought, that's it. Even if she was alive, and chances were slim, now she would have definitely have lost all hope. But Nida hadn't just wandered absent-mindedly home. She seemed eager to show the desperate family and the rescue crew something important. The dog headed the group of rescuers and led them into the wilderness. The dog led authorities to a spot in the wilderness, but none of them saw Karina there. Nida, it seemed, couldn't find the exact area where she'd left the little girl. Authorities wondered if they were anywhere near her at all. But 3 days later, 12 days after Karina first went missing, rescue workers spotted a child-sized footprint on a riverbed beside a dog's paw print. The footprint revealed Karina was barefoot, a crucial detail for investigators. This told rescue workers that Karina likely was not in the woods. Too many sharp sticks, there would have been a nightmare on her feet. This narrowed their search down considerably, and the following morning, they executed that new search plan. And sure enough, just 20 meters from where they started searching, one rescue worker noticed a peculiar lump tucked away in a patch of tall grass. The whole crew rushed over. They found her nestled in the grass. She was starving, thirsty, exhausted, and covered in mosquito bites, but nevertheless alive. They brought her tea before carrying her to a car and whisking her away to the nearest hospital. The child spent some time in the hospital, but physicians determined there wouldn't be any lasting damage. A psychologist examined her mental state and found, shockingly, her mind was in a good place. Talk about mental fortitude. So how did a 4-year-old girl survive in the Siberian wilderness? The little girl told reporters and her family that she survived off wild berries and river water. Then, of course, there was Nida, the lovable canine that gave her warmth at night and companionship in the daytime. The two reunited for the first time back at home when the hospital released Karina. The meeting did not go as expected. When Karina first saw her dog, she looked her in the eyes and chided, "Why did you leave me?" Those 3 days of solitude must have really affected the little girl. But eventually, she came to understand what the dog did for her. "It was Nida who rescued me," Karina said sometime later. "I was really, really scared. But when we were going to sleep I hugged her, and together we were warm." Karina's story gripped everyone watching, and locals even erected a statue of the girl and her pooch to celebrate their strength and will to survive. Not bad for a 4-year-old and her dog, huh? In the end, Karina made a full recovery, and by 2018, attended a ballet boarding school 350 miles away from the village she'd wandered away from all those years ago. Her teachers believed she had the talent to compete in Russia's competitive ballet scene. When she just started her classes, Karina was very reserved, a boarding school leader said. She has changed so much and became a lot more open, sociable, friendly and independent. She made many friends who love her lots. But even as she danced like an expert and earned friends with her exuberant personality, she would never forget the friend that made it all possible, Nida, the loyal canine.